I hear all the time from my patients, oh, I'm so broken.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to fall apart. I feel like I'm falling apart. And I have to like really exercise those demons, exercise, excise those demons, of being like, no, you're not fragile. You can do this.
Yeah.
You will be able to do this. Like, maybe we can't do it right now, but we will eventually be able to get you to that point. And I think.
Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community.
Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast. Today we have with us Marcela Lopes. She is a local Rolfer. And today we're going to be talking about Rolfing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you became a Rolfer.
So I moved to America in 2014. I just want to learn English and, travel. I was 22. And then I worked as a nanny for a few years. And then after a while, I was like, okay, what should I wanted to have a career. Education was always very important to me. But going to college in America, like going to the 4 years and basic, 4 years, maybe more. It wasn't something that was interesting to me. I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. So I was like, okay, what can I do here that I can work for someone, but I can also eventually have my own business? So I did some research. I worked in this kind of field of massage in Brazil. So I was like, okay, I think I can do massage. Massage would be something that I would be happy with. And then, in the future, I can have my own business. So I went to massage school, and then I started working in the rehab center that I worked for 4 years before I went to Rolfing school, and I just fell in love with what I do. And then it was time to do my own business, but I didn't want to just be another massage therapist. I wanted to provide a service that would give more autonomy to my clients. Because when I worked for the chiropractor, this clinic that I work, for a lot of years that I was there, I would see clients like weekly. And I'm like, there must be something else that I can do for those people that they would feel better longer. And then Rolfing was, I knew about Rolfing in the first massage program that I went, in continuing education that I took in the long of the years. And there was always Rolfing there. They always talked about Rolfing. And I'm like, this sounds interesting. And then in 2021, that's when I decided that I was going to get into Rolfing school. And then moved to Colorado. And and now we're here.
Cool. That sounds awesome. Like I do resonate with that whole concept of giving your patients more autonomy and independence. I mean, I think that's something that we really strive for here, is equipping people to be able to take care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So not having them be dependent on you to quote unquote fix them all the time, but them coming to learn the skills and how to kind of fix and correct themselves when things go awry.
Exactly. So
you talk about Rolfing, but maybe there's a lot of people out there that don't actually know what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rolfing, it's a combination of manual therapy and movement education. So we work primarily in the fascial system to find those, to create a better alignment, to release the tension that can be holding on and preventing, kind of like creating, I see like the tension that we have in the body becomes an obstacle for movement. Mm-hmm. So as a Rolfer, I'm working in those what we call like the dips and pockets between the fascias and the layers of muscles to free those areas, and then the client can find their perfect alignment with the instructed movement that we do in combination with the manual therapy.
Yeah, I mean, some people might not know what fascia is. Can you explain what fascia is?
Fascia, it's got a layer of tissue that we have, and it's like a web-like tissue. So we have like we have many layers. We have like right under our skin, we have in between muscles, organs and everything. So it's like almost like I explain to my clients that it's like if you imagine like a suit, like the diving suits.
Mhm.
So you have it like that covers your entire body.
Mhm.
So from your toes all the way to your head, there's fascia and there's many layers of it.
So yeah, I mean, in the body, there's just to explain to our viewers, there's different kinds of tissue, right? There's muscular tissue, there's ligaments, there's tendon, and then there's fascia. And fascia is kind of like the connective tissue that separates compartments of the body, and
Yes.
then it'll surround your viscera or your organs. It also covers pockets and layers of muscle and kind of separates them, right? So some of you guys might be barbecue enthusiasts. I know Matt is a barbecue enthusiast. If you've ever had to butcher a piece of meat or take off the silver skin is a kind of fascial tissue that it's not muscle, it's not
Yeah.
tendon, it's not bone, but it's like,
Yeah.
what is this? It doesn't taste very good either. But in a strange way, that is what we're working on with Rolfing, correct?
Yeah. And I tell my clients, like, get your hands, put on your arms, and like slightly move around. Like this glide that you feel, this is your fascia moving around. But you touch some areas and it won't move.
Mm-hmm.
That means like there's like some tension there. There needs to be, we mainly like are hydrating. We're creating that glide in between. We wanted it, because the fascia is a system that gives shape to our body. It's like a proprioception system of, and then there's a lot of there's studies that proves that there's fascia that has their own nerve system, so it has a way to communicate to our brain, and then give like pain referrals, and so we can work with that in that layer to release, and the client can start giving information before we start getting deep in the muscles. And
Yeah. I mean, every part of your body and every system has to have some sort of sensory or nerve feedback, right? So
yeah,
we have nerves going into our muscles, we have nerves going into our tendons, we have nerves going into each one of our vessels and arteries that work and that get input in. And your fascial system is something that connects your entire musculoskeletal system, from your bones and the periosteum on the bone to wraps around the muscle and wraps around the tendons and wraps around the other connective ligaments and tissues. So that neurological input is so important. I mean, just like you said before, there's fascial connections from your diaphragm all the way down to your big toe, or your chest wall down to your shin. I mean, there's one of my favorite books when I was kind of diving into these things is Anatomy Trains. Which I know we talked about that before. Which kind of shows you that there's these pathways and these trains of connective tissue and fascia that connect different parts of your body.
What I see like a lot is like sometimes it's not even like the muscle itself that it has some dysfunction. It's very superficial. And then the clients get surprised, like, oh, it's like such a light touch and it's still like very effective. Like, because we are freeing like whatever is on top first. Maybe we don't need to go that deep, because the tension that you're experiencing, it's in the fascia. So let's free this first. And then we can go, and then we see what happens, see if it helps. And then if it's not, we're going to investigate more. But the fascia gives that a lot of feedback to us already.
So you said, some clients are surprised about how superficial it could be. What are some other misconceptions that people might have about Rolfing, or, things that they thought Rolfing were, but that's not really what it is?
I think the painful part is like the most, like people are like, oh, this is so painful. And well, traditionally the work was developed in the 50s. So Dr. Ida Rolf was a scientist, and then she because there's some life events, and because she was in the lab working, learning about the body, and then she's like, she got into something there. She's like, oh, there's something that is going on in the human body that if we reorganize this body, maybe functions better as a whole. So, but in the 50s, we used our body in a different way. We were mainly like tools. Like we use our body as tools. So then the work, it was intense. I think what I try to explain to my clients is that first, let's understand pain. Like, what are you experiencing? What do you call pain? From the injury, from poor posture, is different that we're gonna experience in the clinic scenario, because here we are creating a safe environment, and then we are triggering the sensation. So yeah, it might sometimes the work is intense, but we are going into that. We are creating that, so we are exploring that. So I think the first misconception about, at least that's not how it work. I don't like to create pain, so we are communicating a lot throughout the session. Another thing that people may get confused is like, oh, it's just like another massage. I'm a massage therapist too. I've been for 5 years, and I can tell that it's not the same thing. I feel like the work of Rolfing has more intention behind the touch. So the difference is like Rolfing is the only modality that combines the massage and the movement education. We have other therapies that provide just movement education, and then we have incredible like massage techniques, like craniosacral is something that a lot of Rolfers also practice. So there is a variety of like massage techniques. There's a variety of movement practice out there. Rolfing is the only one that combines two. And because I am a massage therapist, so I can tell you that it is different. As a massage therapist, I'm like looking to give relief to the client. There's an expectation of the client too. When they come to a session, they expect me to work the whole entire body because they're there for the whole entire experience. And then when they come to Rolfing, I tell them like, I'm going to be working here to look what it's throwing your system or what it's creating this pain. How can we organize the body in a way that it's gonna alleviate pain, but at the same time correct what the dysfunction that is happening on your system, that's gonna make movement easier, that is gonna allow you to have more functionality of your joints, and also have more energy. Because when you're moving, when your body has proper alignment, movement, it's more efficient, so you're spending less energy, like just to walk around and do your daily activities.
A Rolfing session, are you moving during for traditional massage? You're kind of on the table and they work through the body.
Yeah.
How is a Rolfing session look different?
So yeah, the client's way more participative in a Rolfing session. So yeah, we do what we call we assess, we treat, and then we reassess, and that happens not just in the beginning and at the end of the session. We do it throughout the session. So the client comes in, I do an assessment, and then we come up with a strategy for what we're gonna do in that session, and then the client gets on the table. I do some manual release, and I call for movement as I'm doing the manual therapy, and I ask the client to do a like overhead or overhead reach or reach with their legs, or even like a pelvic tilt as I'm working on them. That helps the client to connect with that part of the body. That's when neuroplasticity happen on the brain. And and then the client can, I think that's why the results are so last longer than just a massage, because the client is really like present. They're not gonna be, sometimes they fall asleep, but I try to wake them up because, be present. I tell them like, be half with me and you can chill a little bit. So yeah, and then we do a few things, and then let's get out of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how you're feeling. Let me know, because I'm always asking for feedback. Like,
Yeah.
how are you sensing? How does that? What can you tell me about whatever we did? Does you feel like this is helping for you, or do you feel like no? And then sometimes I come up with a strategy in the beginning of the session, but with a few moves that we do here, and then the client stand up from the table, and then I was like, oh, we already accomplished that, what we are trying to achieve here. So let's move on to the next part. So throughout the session, the clients are in and out the table. And what we do in Rolfing, like the whole idea is like, how can I bring some organization in the client's body when they're on the table, but how can can stand up and hold that posture on their own? Because I feel like that's the main thing. Like, I create an alignment when you're on the table, but then how can you bring that alignment into gravity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that test retest is so important, and that's something that we always try to achieve, where we do a test and we have like KPIs, like what are our key performance indicators? Is it hip internal rotation? Is it toe touch? Like whatever that KPI is for that specific client, do we do an intervention and do we make a change, right?
Yeah.
So once we do that intervention and we figure out, if that intervention was successful, then we could either hammer it further or change our approach.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't make the change that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And then we get them to move, right? Essentially, we try to get the person in that new range of motion or that new position to be able to stabilize and understand that new position and further secure it, right? So
Yeah.
exercise, movement is going to, just like you said, create that plasticity and that connection to whatever part of that body is quote unquote injured, and allowing us to kind of solidify the work that we did during that session.
Yeah. Because what I see sometimes, like, you have this whole plan before the session start, and every client responds in a way, like, so like the work needs to be efficient. The whole idea is just to be efficient. So this test, like assess, do some intervention and retest, helps to the work to be even more efficient. Like, and like clients respond in different ways. So yeah, so I feel like it's a good way to approach the body, and having the client participate in the session. I tell my clients all the time, it's like, I study anatomy, I learned about the body, but you live in this body.
Yeah.
So I need you to be with me here. We're working together.
Yeah.
This is happening between, we're working together to accomplish something.
Yeah, I think that communication and really being clear about what the expectation is, like you are a participant. It is your responsibility to help yourself, right?
Yeah.
You can't just, if I'm seeing you once or twice a week, like there's 0% chance that we're going to make a lasting change unless you're an active participant.
It's what we create. We create some in the session, but then it's mainly what it's going to give them that freedom of their body back. It's what they do on their daily life. But if you're not educating them in the session, they leave there, they don't know like the things that they need to do, or they just come here, do this, and then they go back home and they're not even thinking about like what we did throughout the session. I wanted them to leave the session. I was like, okay, this is what we accomplished here. You need to keep exploring this on your own. And then I encouraged them like to come to me. I was like, you can, use our text conversation just to put notes as like, I noticed this. You don't even need to make a conversation like, hi, Marcela, how are you? No, just put there, we have our notes of like, or even if you have new goals, because sometimes clients come in and they want to get rid of things like, oh, I have this neck pain, I have this lower back pain, my foot hurts, and I want this, I don't want them to hurt. So they want things out, like the pain out of their body. But they start coming and they realize that like how much they can gain. Like, oh, I wasn't even expecting to feel like I can breathe better. Like I didn't notice before coming here that I wasn't breathing like properly. So now I sleep better. So they didn't come in to, improve their sleep, but now their sleep has improved and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I gained this. So that's what like a part of the beautiful thing about Rolfing is like, it's not like just getting rid of things that they don't want to, it's all the things that they gain with the work too,
That's
that
awesome.
they're not expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think people come in with a certain set of goals for physical therapy, and those goals might change.
Yeah.
They might become greater than they thought that they were
I
able
thought
to achieve.
sophisticated. I was like, oh, you have sophisticated goals now.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it all. We see that all the time where, people are like, oh my God, I could do this. Or I
Yeah.
could do that. And they surprise themselves. So we talked about some of the things that, Rolfing is really great for. Are there, other specific diagnoses? Do you find that Rolfing's really good for, chronic low back pain or some other underlying issues?
A lot of my clients come in because like they're experiencing like chronic pain resulting from like past injuries or really like, but a lot of people come in because they don't have anything major, like, oh, I don't have any injury, but I just really don't feel good in my body. Like, so, they want to change. They don't know exactly what they're looking for. So I'll get a lot of clients that come from that. A lot of clients that just want to improve their body, their performance, athletic performance. They just want to, how can I use my body in my favor? How can I use how can I use the ground as a resource? How can I use my body in a more efficient way? A lot of the clients who have like spinal issues come to Rolfing. A lot of like cervical problems, like,
Mhm.
I think that's a result from modern life, like the way we live. We see it a lot. So low back, a lot of low back, cervical issues. Scoliosis is like a big thing because it's also like a condition that, like there's just so much that we can improve. But how can I live with this and live better?
Mhm.
A lot of people with foot pathologies, which is like my favorite thing because everything is like how this is your support for your whole system. So I get really into the foot. I really like that kind of work. But yeah,
Tell
basically.
me a little bit more about that. Like, why do you like the foot so much?
So what I see is with the foot, when we create more stability, more support, more balance, we can distribute our weight better. So if you have functional arches, if your toes are engaging, if you have mobility on your ankles, then whenever you're doing your daily activities, then you can receive um, more support for your hips, your shoulders, your spine. And that all starts with the foot. That in the traditional application of the work, what we call the 10 series, it's when we address the body, like the whole entire body, but then we divide it in 10 sessions. Foot is the second one because we start creating that connection from the ground into our spine. So we work to make sure that the bones are aligned. We have functional joints there, and we are using the structures that we have in the foot to support us into gravity.
A lot of times people go with like a top down model only, or like a bottom up model only, where the foot is dictating everything, or like the pelvis is dictating everything. I'm a firm believer that, gravity is causing both those things to be working simultaneously. Like, gravity is real. I mean, the input from our foot and the input from the rest of our body, connecting us to the ground and feeding us information, that information could be maybe incorrect. And then we could base our compensatory mechanisms on that faulty information. And then you just keep on going down this rabbit hole of other compensatory mechanisms from this false information that we're getting from our foot. So, I mean, sometimes I am not always a believer in orthotics.
Yeah.
Some patients, I think, kind of require it. Those that have all of a sudden got some sort of foot pathology, either through injury or through repetitive stress, like maybe they tore a tendon in their plantar fascia or their foot and they need some support. But I'm a firm believer that we need to teach people how to use their feet and how to sense the ground and where their foot placement is, because it really does dictate like what else is going on along the hip and the low back. And
we are constantly loading our hip every time that we take a step. The foot is loading that. So how can you use your foot in a way that it's gonna load at your hip, but in a way that's not gonna create imbalance? You know, it requires the hip to stabilize in a way that it's not natural to compensate that, you know, that you're using more one side of your foot than the other. So your hip feels that, like that when your foot is not hitting the ground, right? You know, your knees feel it, your hip feels it. So we want that first contact, and we also have so much mechanoreceptors in the bottom of our foot. Helps with us orient ourselves in space, and it creates more. It also allows us to have more adaptability. So I see a lot of clients, like older clients, that it's like, oh, I have and I keep on rolling my ankles. Like, how can we have functional feet? Like, you're gonna be adaptable. So even if you're walking outside and there's like uneven ground, and you're able to adapt yourself and not even go into that injury, because your body just knows how to bring into the proper alignment.
I tell people all the time, and I experience this with my clients, is that one of the best ways to retrain or understand how retrain the body's ability to sense the ground is to load people up, right? So give them weight, right? Force gravity to be force those sensations from the ground to be even greater, right? So we'll have them do a squat or a deadlift or a lunge with some like pretty significant weight. And what do I find that is that once we do that, it kind of magnifies all the sensation that they were getting. And then they understand, like, oh my God, like all my weight is on my big toe right now. I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm like, because right now you're just trying to find a way to successfully achieve this task I gave you. Right. And now you could see the problems that you're having or the reasons why you're having some of these problems.
Now you're like super aware.
Yeah. It's, I just find it to be like a magnifying glass.
That's pretty cool. I never thought about that.
Magnify the whatever sensations they're getting, or, and we use that to retrain. Like we'll use some wedges to kind of shift their weight towards a different part of their body, or we'll use resistance bands, and it's kind of like a feed forward effect where we'll kind of shift them into their compensation, and then they have to shift out of it. Right. So like we kind of reinforce their compensation and then use the bands as a resistance so that they actually have to actively try to resist going into their compensation. So I find that kind of reprogramming is super, super important in the early onset. I think in the late onset or the later stages of recovery, I think it's super important to not to have people believe that they're fragile, right? And I think that mentality of fragility is something that's it's a very thin line that rehab professionals and massage therapists, we have to kind of navigate around, right? Because we don't want to be like, oh, don't put your big toe down, or like your pinky toe, like that you're going to blow your ACL if you put your pinky toe down. So I think in the early onset, really giving them the information and understanding that there is some nuance there, but there is room for error. And if we are able to load up and build up resiliency, that they will eventually be able to do it on their own without falling apart. Like I hear all the time from my patients, oh, I'm so broken. Like, oh, I'm going to fall apart. I feel like I'm falling apart. And I have to like really exercise those demons, you know, exercise those demons. Of being like, no, you're not fragile. You can do this. You will be able to do this. Like, maybe we can't do it right now, but we will eventually be able to get you to that point. And I think like I think Rolfing is really, really important because it's instilling that idea of we're making these changes. We want them to last so that you can do what you want to do, like getting back to
Exactly.
your goal.
Yeah. I feel like that that like the mental part it plays a bit huge
Huge.
like role in when you're treating patients. I think yes, as a therapist, I call myself body therapist. We are working in the body, but if we don't shift the software, change is not gonna
We're
happen.
working on hardware, but we got to shift some software. I like it.
Yes.
I like that.
So the change happens here.
Yeah.
And a lot of like times when I'm calling for movement during the session, I just ask for the movement. Like, can you reach with your heel? And then I see like power because we think like, okay, I have to do this and I have to be strong and I have to go as fast as I can. And then I let them do like, and then I was like, okay, let's do it again now. But I want you to use only that part. See that when you did it before, you use your low back arched, your shoulder, you had to adjust. You're helping with your whole entire structure. So I wanted them to do that fail. Like I wanted them kind of like failing in something.
Yeah. You
So
got
they
to
can
fail
do
to succeed sometimes.
exactly. It's important. Like there's room for change when you're like, okay, I did it wrong. Like, how can I get it right? So then they're like even more focused. Now they're bringing their whole attention to that, and they do that in their daily lives because they practice getting curious about what is going on. We're like, huh, why is that? Why am I doing that? What is this hurting? And then I always get texts from clients like after the session, like, you know what? You told about my hip, and then I noticed that I sit like this a lot. And then I noticed something on their neck, like a rotation happened on their neck. Like, you know what? I think it's because I do this all the time. So all of a sudden they're like coming to me with the diagnosis, like, okay, now I know what to work with.
Yeah.
Because doing like their activities on their life, they're getting information because I tell them like pain activation, it's like information.
Yeah.
So pain is an activation of like something on your body is connecting to your brain, telling you like something's about this. So it's an opportunity to improve your condition. So let's get curious about this pain. When is that pain? When did it start? What do you do that increase? What do you think it is? Like having them questioning that it's what like it gets them out of that fear mind, because a lot of what happens with injuries too is that the pain that you experienced and the injury, it's like the way our brain is programmed to understand like pain. It's like every time that you feel pain, they think it's like a new pain.
Yeah.
But it's not really like let's be curious about this. Okay, your ankle is hurting because you had an injury. It's not the same pain, but is this pain like the same pain that you felt when you hurt? Or is this like a different, like what do you feel like if you stand on this leg, it's going to break again? Or it's like, is this like a pain? Like, oh no, it's a little sore now. I feel like it's the range of motion is limited. So it's creating more, like as it's like pulling and stuff like, there's like tension. So you're getting to teach them how to differentiate pain, like what are they feeling, and then having them to get curious about it, because that's what helps us help us to address in the session.
Yeah. No, I think that open communication and really having the patient be the active participant in the recovery is super, super important. And I love what you're doing. I love everything that you're saying. I think it's super, super important. I hope to get treated by you at some point.
I hope too.
But I do want to thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We'll hopefully see you soon.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least one or two helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.